So, 2000, at the time, people thought of as like the lowest stakes election in like the history of the world. Like peace and prosperity, like, no urgent crises. The end of that campaign has been overshadowed by obviously the recount, and then 9 months later, September 11th. And so the campaign itself tends to like be really minimized in our memory. I think that it's been incredibly influential in the political profession. And that's because two things were revealed to us in 2000 that can totally dominate campaigns. The first is it's when we realize how totally polarized in ideological and partisan terms the electorate and the country were. And so I write about Matthew Dowd, who was Bush's chief polling advisor, an Austin resident, I believe an alumnus of this institution, who starts working on a memo even before the Supreme Court has ruled in Bush v. Gore, laying out a strategy for the Bush reelection. And he dwells on one piece of data in the exit polls, which was something like, I'm probably going to get the numbers just off, but that in 1984, 26% of people had split their tickets between at some place on their ballot voting for a Democrat and a Republican, and that by 2000 it was down to 7%. And what Dowd said was, we can no longer think of elections just as this sort of effort to win over swing voters in the middle, which if you think back to the way people talked about campaigns in the 90s was like the dominant paradigm for understanding what you did. But we need to focus on mobilizing people who are on our side but are not regular voters. So we need to be better at individually identifying them and pinpointing them, and we need to be much better at motivating and mobilizing them. And then the other insight, which is connected but was revealed in Florida, was just that elections could be decided around really small margins, which allowed people in the political world who might have otherwise scoffed at the idea of investing millions of dollars to solve small incremental problems about efficiency or effectiveness to take that stuff seriously. And so a lot of the stuff that I write about in my book, either on the experimental side, it's about finding some way to improve your canvassing script or your phone program to get 1 point or 2 point or 3 points better. And on the data microtargeting side, it's figuring out how to be more efficient by 3 points or 3% or 4% or 5% in sorting through voters. That might have been something in the mid-90s somebody would have laughed at and said, wait, you want me to do all this work for 1 or 2 points? And after Florida, that no longer seemed like a silly way of thinking about campaigns. And so the Bush campaign, the reelection, ends up at least on the sort of pinpointing and identifying voters in your coalition problem, making major strides through what we now call micro-targeting.